Welcome to the H series of webinars. This series is aimed at new and aspiring sheep producers to give them a step up into the Queensland sheep industry. This harvesting webinar is part 7 of the series and explores the basics of wool handling and clip preparation. This webinar was delivered by AWEX Wool Cluster Registrar Fiona Raleigh on the 26th of August 2020. This is clip 3 of 10 and covers urine stain.
So the first one we look at is contamination, and we've got a few different contamination issues. The ones that I think we're most going to focus on are the ones that, if you like, are sheep-borne, the ones that are on the sheep themselves, the ones that are inevitable. They're going to be there, and it's about how we manage it. So the first risk we'll be looking at is urine stain. And the key indication from research is that stain after 3 months of being present on the sheep becomes dark. It is dark enough to limit dyeing potential. So that 3-month crutching interval is very important. So sheep crutched within 3 months of shearing have a very low incidence of risk. And we'll go into that in a minute. So we have a scheme called the Dark and Regulated Fibre Risk Scheme, which is based on the crutching history of the mob. So very importantly, the grower needs to indicate give the class the information about when the sheep were last crutched, and that needs to be documented, but I'll also go into that in a minute. So the sheep are given a DMFR rating based on their crutching history and other information, and it's a scale of 1 to 6, and that's printed on the sale catalogue. Some buyers actually have limits on the DMFR rating or the dark and regulated fibre rating that they can purchase. If you can get yourself into the risk category, and I'll just show you the risk rating, risk category 1, which means they are sheep between 2 and 8 years old and crutched less than 3 months before shearing, fleece wool, will give you that risk rating of 1, and that may be some buyers are limited to only purchase those low risk lines. So it is important, and it is information that is printed in the sale catalogue. Now this is only for merinos, because merinos as a white wool breed have the lowest incidence of dark and regulated fibre. So when we talk about stain, we're referring to urine stain only, and also it's important to realise that urine stain has an equivalence to black wool. So we all know the importance of, pigmented fibre and black wool within the shearing industry. The shearer sings out black wool and everyone runs over to grab that piece of wool and do what they need to do with it. Urine stain has that same limitation to the dyeing process. It's a very important thing to manage. The other thing to realise about urine stain is that it meets the mob concept, which sounds a little bit funny. And that means that all the urine stain within a mob should be uniform for length and intensity if they've all been crutched at the same crutching interval. All the stain should be uniform and has a value as a line of wool. And the other thing to remember is that stain is a fault in wool. It's not a wool type. So when we're preparing a line of wool that has an incidence of stain, it must all be of the same type and length. Something that the grower can do that's important with limiting these risks of urine stain and also other pen-affected wool where we've got dung and fresh feces sort of on the tips of the fleece is making sure that sheep have been emptied out prior to being shedded, and watch that shedding density, especially if the sheep have a high incidence of dag. When they're rubbing on each other, when they've been penned too densely prior to shearing, you can get a lot of dag coloration on the tip of the wool, which is, it's unfortunate. You've prepared the sheep right up until the day of shearing and then you get them contaminated on the day. That's something to watch out for. If you do have wet and pen-affected wool, it must be dried before pressing, and it can be treated as just a normal line of wool. It is not to go into a stain line. It's just a line of wool that's been affected by fresh feces.
Thank you for watching this short clip. For more information, please visit www.leadingsheep.com.au.